Cindy Crawford is going to star in a film that Suzanne Arms is making on birthing the future. That'll be on PBS hopefully in a couple of months. I helped with that. I didn't get to meet Cindy Crawford, but I keep dropping into Rooms Are Us or Rooms to Go, and she's never there. She just left. The other thing is using the media. Whenever you see something on, I guess soap opera viewing is dropping off fast, but you see something on ER or something in the papers where somebody's really giving the wrong information, extolling scheduled cesareans and so on, you need to take the time to you can write the papers by email really easily nowadays to the editor, and sometimes they'll print them, sometimes they won't. But if you write the St. Pete Times, let's say, with a letter, and I do it all the time, about 1 out of 10 will be printed, but the others are always on their website. So you can always read people's letters even if they don't show up in the paper. But respond to things that you know are wrong, because there's just a lot of bad information out there. We talked about informed consent. The last thing is, as I said before, President Obama is really looking for input, and he's got a website on health. They hold town meetings around Florida, and I hope you'll go to those. And every woman needs a doula, every woman needs a midwife. We need to tell them what's happening, and if nothing else, we can tell them they can save a bundle of money and have better birth outcomes if we learn to do things the right way again. I brought along this book here that Nisette Jukelovitz wrote. She's officer in Kim's. I wrote the foreword to it. I'll leave some brochures here. You can get it on Amazon. I do not get a cut of the profits. But most of these comments I had are in my foreword. I'll leave a copy of the foreword, so if you want to you can just attach it to an email, scan it, and if anybody wants it, just send it to them.
Thanks, Jamie.
Yeah.
Could we post it on the website?
Absolutely. No, right. Put it on billboards. That's what it's for. That's why I wrote it. I think we've had nice responses at the college to showing Ricky Lake's films, and actually Dr. Keefe, who's the head of OB over at Tampa General and USF, made all of his residents and faculty come and watch it, and it was interesting to be there. And USF is one of the few places where you can get a VBAC nowadays. So I sat in the background watching. I'd seen the film before and watching the reaction and everything. I couldn't tell much about what people were saying, but I really felt good, because in the end, now, some people may have been afraid to give their negative comments, but almost to a person in the room, they all said, I wish we could do that here. I wish we could turn our service into something that was like that. And I thought, well, that's really neat. That's a good sign. Other things that you can do is, back in the 60s, a group in Philadelphia, and they've sort of resurrected themselves. They did it was called Childbirth Choices, and they sent questionnaires out to all the OB providers in Philadelphia, and they asked them things. The cesarean rate wasn't as high back then, but they asked them things like, what was their rate? Do they have their boards? How long do people have to wait to get in? How long do they have to wait in their office? A lot of customer care kinds of things. And most of the doctors answered, and they put them in a booklet each year to distribute to pregnant women. Occasionally, a doctor, the first year, some doctors would say, go to hell and send it back. Some would not send it back. And on their page, under their name, it would say, go to hell, or did not respond. And so that's, next year they all responded and were very nice. So some kind of activism like that. Now, the doctors don't like it. The doctors, Angie's List is now critiquing doctors, so you can, and that's a national group. Do y'all know about that? You can pay a certain amount and look up, sort of like the Better Business Bureau used to be. You can find out who's will re-roof your house and not leave it dripping. But they've gotten into critiquing doctors, and most of what people send in is good. I've done it a couple of times on doctors I've gone to and said how good they are. And but boy, the storm of protests they've had from doctors, saying you can't judge a doctor based on what one person says. There's some truth to that. But if you get a whole raft of things from different people, there's a pattern there that you start to see. And there's also the thing about that we know that you know, and that somebody's out there watching, which is not a bad thing. Yeah. And ACOG doesn't do that. I mean, people think, the State Board of Medicine does look at terrible things that doctors might do, mostly overprescribing deadly drugs, and they can slap your hands for that. But medicine doesn't do a good job of policing itself. ACOG doesn't see that as their job. You can file an ethics complaint with them if somebody does something terrible like that records thing I talked about. But that's about it. So it really goes back to the consumer to take hold of this thing and make it turn around to the right direction. And it's not just the right thing to do, it's really important for the outcome of our kids. Right now, their outcomes are getting worse and worse and worse, and our schools are going to be loaded up with kids in special ed and attention deficit disorder because of unnecessary operations. Yeah, it just doubles the number that are there. Well, that's my harangue, so any questions or comments? Or I'll leave all my contact information with Ann. But really want you to go out there and raise hell.
I do have a question.
Yeah.
I like the idea of having standards, national standards. I'm wondering who would be in charge of creating those standards.
I think you better make sure you're part of it. Well, no, I mean, why should, right now, if I had to pick somebody, I'd pick Childbirth Connection. They've got more science behind them than NIH does. National Institute of Health, Child Health and Human Development, it doesn't say maternity in there anywhere, does it? And precious little of their research is on pregnancy. It's mostly children's health, which is okay. But.
So we could start a grassroots push to get Childbirth Connection as the structure that oversees that.
Well, the other thing is that a number of us around the state, we tried a few years ago to write state standards for Florida, the neonatologists, because the other huge expense is all these babies going into neonatal nurseries that don't need to be there. That's billions of dollars too. And so we tried under the former governor, whose name we shall not say, since there's a new Harry Potter movie coming out, to get, we'd pretty much written the neonatal standards and we're working on the perinatal ones, and ACA didn't want to have anything to do with them because it would tick off the doctors.